One of the things to know about perspective is you've got a few different kinds. There is 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, and there's also 3-point perspective to draw in. If you decide to draw something in 1-point perspective, it's pretty straightforward. 2-point perspective becomes a little bit more complicated. And then 3-point perspective is very, very tricky. So I always tell my students, if you are trying to decide what kind of perspective to draw in, try out 1-point perspective, see if it's tricky or not. If you find it to be very easy, then move on to 2-point, and save 3-point for once you have experience with 2-point. It can be really tricky. Okay, so the first thing I would suggest is that you take your sheet of paper and a ruler, and you're going to draw what's called a horizon line. So I tell my students the horizon line is just the line that divides the sky from the ground. Now, where to put that line? You can put it high on the page. Just know that if you do it high on the page, you're going to have a lot of ground, very little sky, which means it's going to imply a little bit more of maybe a slightly more aerial perspective. You're going to have a lot more room for short buildings that are below the horizon line. You can see rooftops and things. Maybe, unless you can also choose to draw those tall. There's a lot of ways to do this. If you draw your line kind of middle of the page, you've got a lot of sky and a lot of ground. You have a lot more opportunity to do some tall buildings and some short buildings. If you do your horizon line really low, tons of sky, you're probably a lot more likely to have a lot of skyscrapers and really tall buildings. Okay, so what I would do, just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to draw a line in the center of the page. I like to use the edges of the paper as a guideline. I'm going to draw across here. And I always draw lightly. I want you guys to be able to see the line though. But I always draw lightly so that you can erase that horizon line once it starts showing up inside of your buildings. Okay, let's do 1-point perspective. With 1-point perspective, excuse me, you need 1 point, literally a dot on the line somewhere. You can do middle of the road here, or you can kind of go off to one side. I find it more interesting to look at something that's got a vanishing point. That's what your point is called, a vanishing point. I find it interesting to do a vanishing point off to one side. Just makes it more dynamic, more interesting to look at, I think. Then you're going to take your ruler and draw 2 lines to create a road. If you create a road, you don't want to make the mistake of drawing your lines too close together, because then it's going to create sort of too much of an aerial view, sort of a bird's eye view. If you widen the lines of your road, the sides of your road, it's going to look a lot more accurate and give you some depth and perspective, and that's what we want here. So I like to make my road really nice and wide. Hey, Courtney. I'm trying to see. Hang on a second. Swipe left to reveal comments and reactions. I'm trying to look at my iPad and so that I can see comments. But I don't know. It's not letting me on my iPad. I don't know. I guess I'll just look up every once in a while and see if people are saying stuff. Okay, so I'm going to go like this, off to one side, and then I'm going to bring this out pretty wide over here. Okay, so imagine these are the sides of your road. This right here is your vanishing point. That's like the point off in the distance where everything will appear to shrink into the background. When you go to draw a building, you're going to start with just a vertical line. This would be one corner of a building. If you start, let's say you start kind of back here toward the background, you're going to be a lot more likely to run into trouble when you try to draw buildings in front of it. You're going to end up erasing a lot of stuff. So I like to start up front with what's closest to us. So I'll start with a building right here, and I'm going to draw a nice tall building so that you can see. Make sure you use the edges of your paper as a guideline and try to make sure that you're actually vertical. I'm going to draw a nice tall building, and I'm going to draw my line close to the edge of the road, but not all the way to the edge of the road. Because if you walk down the street, do you honestly see buildings that are on the curb? Well, no. You need a little bit of space there. So this is a corner of a building. The next thing you're going to do is keep in mind that the wall of the building that faces the street is going to angle. The rooftop and the bottom of the wall will angle toward the vanishing point. So I'm going to lay my ruler down and I'm going to line it up at the bottom of this line right here and line it up with the vanishing point. Okay. How bizarre. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb, and yet it rang. That's so strange. Can you guys hear me okay? I see Courtney and Lainey. Hi. Let me know if you can hear me or not. I swear I put the phone on Do Not Disturb, and yet it just rang. Okay, so I'm going to draw a line that will represent the bottom of my building. I don't want to draw it too far back. I'm going to make it kind of a narrow building. But as you can see, it's angling to the vanishing point. Don't go all the way there. Then we need another vertical line. I'm going to bring this over, stay vertical, stay parallel to this other wall, and come up. Now, the question here is, I know from experience that this line should not be as high as this one, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to draw lightly. The reason I know that is because I know that my rooftop on this wall is going to need to angle down to the vanishing point. Remember that anything on the left side of your building, if you're on the right side of your vanishing point, anything on the left-hand wall is going to angle to the vanishing point. So if you're below the horizon line, things angle up. If you're above the horizon line, things angle down. I'm going to line this up now, and I've got that downward slope of the rooftop. So all we have so far is just one wall, basically a vertical wall, and I'm going to erase the horizon line inside of there. Okay, does this make sense so far? Nobody's saying anything. Or if you are, I'm not seeing comments. Okay. Turn this. If I set this here, I'm trying to go parallel to the bottom of the paper, and this wall that I'm drawing right now is flat and just horizontal and vertical lines. Like that. Okay? Erase the horizon line inside. You don't want a see-through building. Excuse me. Then, if you want to draw windows on this building, any windows on this wall facing you will be flat and straight on. So, vertical lines and horizontal lines for your windows. Any windows on this wall will angle toward the vanishing point. I like to line up all my windows at once so that they match each other and look like they are, organized well and that the building is designed well. So if I go like this, I'm going to draw a whole row. 1, 2, 3. Let's just do 3 at the top there. For the sake of being interesting. And then I'm going to draw all of these sides, the tops and bottoms of the windows, all at the same time, so that I can just move my ruler up, 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 keep everything parallel. If you try to draw one entire window at once, you're very likely, and then a second window, you're very likely to have them not matching each other. And they're gonna get wonky. So, and then the right side of all 3 windows at once. And as you can see, they line up really well that way. Okay, they're not centered, but that's okay. So again, anything on this wall facing us will stay flat, straight on, horizontal, and vertical lines only. Anything on this wall now is going to angle toward the vanishing point. So I'm going to lay my ruler on that spot, on that vanishing point, and I'm just going to start drawing some windows, and I pivot upward. On the vanishing point, pivot upward. Now, the only thing I don't like right now is that my ruler is blocking what I'm doing, so I'm going to actually move my ruler above that so I can see what I'm doing. Go like that. Pivot. Keep your ruler on the vanishing point, super important, and just pivot. I'm going to try to get these windows to match each other. I've got a gap there on purpose. Trying to get these to match each other. And then I'm going to draw a third one up here. That's a space. You can be loose and super creative with all this stuff. I'm just trying to line things up to show you how this all works. And then I'm going to draw all the left sides of the windows in a row all at the same time so that they are perfectly lined up with each other. Bring it over to the right side. Draw the entire row of the right side of these windows. Boom. Okay. Now you've got a building that's got windows facing the vanishing point and windows facing you that are flat on. If you wanted to draw like inset windows, let's say you wanted to create what do you call that? Like a ledge? The windowsill on the inside. The trick to that is that based on the direction we're looking at, we would be able to see an inside wall right here. So let's say I can draw a line right here. I also know that I'm below the vanishing point down here, which means I cannot see the ceiling inside this window. Excuse me. I can't see the ceiling inside the window, but I can see the window sill at the bottom. So I am going to take my ruler and draw a line toward the vanishing point, lined up right there. Now, you know what? I made a mistake. Watch this. Watch this. I should have done the inside corner first. Watch. Okay, this corner right here, there would be a corner between the windowsill and the wall that goes up. That line needs to be horizontal, parallel to your horizon line. So I'm going to draw a tiny, short little line right here. This is when mechanical pencils can be useful because they're tiny lead. Go like that. Okay.
This one.
Yep. And then line, then draw this line. I'm going to switch back to that mechanical pencil. I like that for now. There we go. See that? Draw that. There we go. And then up from there. Now, as a result of how far back I drew the corner line, this wall is going to be thicker. And now you've got this illusion of an inset window, a windowsill. You could have a lot of fun and you could draw like little potted plants on here. Right? Maybe this guy needs some water. This guy's drooping a little bit. He needs some water. Okay? But now that helps with the illusion of, hey, I've got a windowsill there, and this is a wall on the inside. You can shade stuff like this. You can shade back here and then get lighter toward the outside because it would be easier for the light to hit the inside wall right there. It's more difficult for the light to reach that inner corner. I can also shade along here very slightly just to help, again, with the illusion of depth. Okay? So cool stuff like that with inset windows. Now, if I draw a building that is lower, shorter than the horizon line, let me show you what happens. I'm gonna try to draw a tiny building over here. So you start still with a vertical line. The wall that faces you. I'm gonna do the bottom of the building. The next vertical, whoops, I just drew a little squiggle there. Vertical line. Again, the top. Both of these walls, the bottom and the top, are angling up toward the vanishing point because the entire building is shorter than the horizon line. Now, I need to draw the wall that is facing me. Like this wall here that's facing me. In between these buildings, I have a gap right here from this corner to here. It's like this could be an alleyway in between the buildings. But this line that I'm about to draw, which is the bottom of the right side of that building, that needs to be horizontal. And I'm going to stop right there. When you run into the next building, stop right there. See? And now you have the illusion of a gap in between here and here. Now you can see the rooftop. There's something missing here. I need to draw a horizontal line that goes back. We don't know how far back that should go unless I estimate how deep is this building? How far back does that building go? I can pretend. Let's pretend that this building, it disappears behind the front building, but if we pretend that it ends, let's pretend it ends here. I'm gonna give myself a dot to aim for. So let's say that the top wall would be ending right here. That means that's where I put my ruler, and then I line that up with the vanishing point. And that is the angle at which that wall needs to go at. This is always the part that confuses students. You can't just haphazardly draw this line, this wall, at just any angle. You have to be precise. It does need to have a specific point at which it ends, and it needs to be lined up with the vanishing point. So there you go. And now you can see the rooftop. That is the tricky part about one-point perspective. Buildings that are taller than the horizon line, you can't see the roof. Buildings that are shorter, you can. Okay? You can go wild with stuff like this. You can draw like a billboard. Maybe I've got a billboard here. Round this out. Watch this. I'm going to draw a huge billboard on top of this building. The bottom is angling up. The top, quite close to the vanishing point. I'm sorry, quite close to the horizon line. Therefore, this line is just barely above. Angling down, though, because I am above the horizon line now. Now, to make this look three-dimensional, you need to have an edge here to make it look like the side of that billboard. Right there, horizontal. Come up here. Horizontal. Let me darken the edge of this front building to separate that. To see how there you've got an edge there now. You can like shade this. Okay. Now you've got a billboard up on top of that building. What if I wanted to draw letters in here so that it says something? The trick with letters is that even though you're angling toward the vanishing point, you still have to make sure that each individual letter stays vertical. Your letters that come toward you will be larger, taller, but they still need to stay vertical. I have so many students who end up drawing the letters and their letters start leaning and they've got all these weird angles going on. So if I wanted to draw a letter here, I'm going to be really careful to make sure that I'm staying vertical, but also trying to keep with the illusion of the letters getting taller. Try to go parallel to that. Try to go parallel to this. And then, do you see what I'm talking about? So you've got vertical letters and just the illusion of them getting larger as they come toward you. Okay? Alright, so that's your basic lesson on one-point perspective. There's so much more I could get into. Let me really quickly show you a sidewalk. If you're going to draw a sidewalk, draw a line pretty close to the edge of your road, and then, excuse me, in one-point perspective, your sidewalk lines are going to be horizontal. And as you go back in space, they're going to gradually appear to get closer and closer together. So go like this. You know, and on and on and on. Closer and closer together just to help create that illusion of space and depth. I mean, they can get closer, they can get so close together, and let me do this quickly. They can end up getting so close together that you end up just doing like the quick little boop, 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 super close together. You know, almost like hatching here. Okay. Now what if you want a curb? If you want a curb, draw another line next to that that is super, super duper skinny. And then right here, where this sidewalk line is, you're gonna come straight down, vertical. Straight down. Do you see how all of a sudden that lifts the curb off the road? Just make sure these are vertical. Isn't that cool? And then you can take a pencil and you can shade. I mean, I would go all the way, but you can shade right up against the curb there. That will also help the illusion of raising the sidewalk up off the edge. And then I would come away from there and like lighten it up. Pull away and lighten. Looks like there's a shadow above my hand. Sorry about that. Okay, again, I would spend so much more time on this that I could do this for hours. But you get the point. Look at how all of a sudden that sidewalk has, boom, it's lifted up off the street. If you want to do a line down the road, down the, you know, the, what do you call that? That like dotted, dashed line down the center of your road. Same sort of thing as with these, where like the line that's close to you is bigger, and then shorten them up. Go draw them shorter and shorter, and then at a certain point they get closer and closer together, and then it just kind of becomes a dotted line. Okay? Looks pretty cool. There's your one-point perspective lesson. One point, okay? Now, I'm trying to grab... Here's a student drawing to show you the idea of a finished example. Hogsmeade. A student after my own heart. Right? Got Quidditch, Honeydukes, Dervish and Bangs, 3 broomsticks. Anyway, one-point perspective. Okay? That's what we're aiming for. Now, if I I do a quick... Oh, by the way, you can also do 1 point perspective from worm's eye view. This is a student example from worm's eye view, meaning you're the worm on the ground and you're looking up at the sky. Okay? And then all the windows, everything's angling exactly where it should. You can do cool curvy buildings with shading. There's another... There's another drawing here that I want to show you really quick, which is an example of 2 point perspective. Okay, 2 point perspective can get really, really complicated. So the basic gist of this is that you start out with a horizon line. You can imagine, you can see where her horizon line was right here. It was right across here. And then you put 2 points on the line. I always suggest putting them really wide. You can even put them way far off the paper. And then you're going to draw a road coming from the left side and a road coming from the right side. And they can converge. You can have cross streets. But essentially, you're going to have the corner of a road. Then, from there, each building that you draw that is on the left wall of every building on the entire paper, the left wall angles to the left-hand point. Look at that left wall, this left wall, this left wall. Each, even over here on the right side of the paper, the left wall still angles to the left-hand vanishing point. Every single right-hand wall. Right wall, right wall, right wall, right wall, right wall, right wall, right wall. All of the right-hand walls on the entire page angle to the right-hand vanishing point. And this is true also of all of the windows, okay? If the windows are on the left wall, they angle to the left. If the windows are on the right wall, they angle to the right. The exceptions, and when this can get incredibly confusing, is when you have inset windows or protruding parts. Okay, see this part that's protruding? So with the inset window, look at this. You're on the left-hand side. Oh God, I'm pointing off the. Sorry guys, I'm off the camera here. Okay, do you see this window right here? Inset. Now, this is the left-hand wall. This window is angling down to the left-hand point, but look at that corner. The inset part of the corner actually angles to the right. And this is always the confusing part. Here's a window on the right-hand wall. The window, the outer edges angle to the right-hand vanishing point. However, the inset part angles to the left. Look up down at this part down here. This part that's sticking out, protruding from the edge of the building, same thing. Even though this is the left-hand wall of the building, the part that is protruding from the front of the building, kind of sticking out like how a balcony would. Look at how this part angles to the left, but the three-dimensional part that is causing it to protrude from the edge of the building, that is angling to the right. Look at that. If I line it up, I can line it up with a vanishing point, or line it up with a ruler right there. Okay, so this is why things like this get tricky. There's like a little doorway right here, an entryway. It's inset, therefore even though this is the right hand wall, that inset part is angling left. So you get these crissy-crossy lines where you're like, sometimes your brain's going, wait, do I go left or do I go right? I'm on the left side, so shouldn't I go to the left? Not necessarily. If it's an inset window, this is the right-hand wall. The outer edges of the right wall angle to the right, but the inset part is angling left. Left, 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 left. Okay? So that is something for you to play with. Give it a try, and you can keep things simple. This is obviously a very complex drawing by one of my really talented students. who totally grasps the idea of perspective, completely understands how it works. But you got to start off simple, okay? So start off with something simple like this, and then as you start to pick it up and figure out how it works, then go wild with it. Let me show you my example from my classes that I did a couple years ago. There we go. So here's a quick example that I did in class for my students of a more simplistic corner, street corner. Okay? You've got the sidewalk on here. That's the other thing. Sidewalk lines, when I showed you the sidewalk on 1 point perspective, it's all horizontal, horizontal, horizontal. Okay? If I show you a sidewalk on 2 point perspective, these lines on the right side of the street angle to the left-hand vanishing point. If I do sidewalk lines along the left side of the street, they angle to the right-hand vanishing point. So you start off drawing a building how you would expect, where the left side angles to the left, the right wall angles to the right, the windows themselves angle to the right, but then inset parts angle left. Okay? I'm on the left wall here. The outer side part of the window angles left. However, the inset part angles to the right. So I encourage you guys to try this. Look, you've got a park bench here. Okay? Benches, other objects that have angles to them and hard surfaces will follow the rules of perspective. If you draw a tree, it doesn't matter. Draw a tree. Do whatever you want with it. It's organic. It's natural. It doesn't care about perspective. Okay? So go wild with that stuff. You don't need to worry about perspective very much with organic stuff. The only thing I might say is, like, if you wanted a tree-lined street, then I would use a very, very light line as a guideline for just the height of the row of trees. Maybe you had like a whole row of trees, then I would angle that toward the vanishing point just for the tops of the trees, but the actual shape of the tree wouldn't change. So that's how things like that work. Okay? So that is your 2 point perspective. And again, letters have to stay vertical, even though they're shrinking as they go back in space. Let me know if you have any questions. I would love to see if any of you try this at home. I would love to see your examples. Take a photo and message it to me. And just have fun with it, okay? Even young kids can do this sort of thing. You can start off with simple shapes and try out just drawing a cube. Give yourself a dot, draw a square, and then angle toward the dot. Now you have drawn a cube in 1 point perspective. You can leave that dot there. Try drawing one over here. Angle. Right? So all of this type of practice is really, really good even for young kids. Give it a try and let me know how it goes. All right, thank you everybody. Have fun with it.